Right, afternoon everyone, and welcome to the Player, the Coach, the Person. Hope everyone's keeping well out there. It's webinar number 10 today, and I'm delighted to welcome Mr. Jamie Moralee. How are you, Jamie?
All right, Brownie, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. I'll start off straight away as when we first met, going back a few years. In the time of your Crew Alex days, I think I was a 16 or 17-year-old YTS.
Sure.
You'd come up from Watford, joined from Watford, and you kind of took me under your wing, didn't you? I think we were the only two Southern players in the club.
Yeah, we were, but unfortunately taking you under my wing at those days, mate, weren't giving you extra training and gym sessions. It was more like going in the betting shop and taking to the dogs in the evening. So, listen, that was the culture then. And luckily now we're both doing okay. And it's a pleasure to speak to you. And like I say, just catching up with you and seeing that you're doing so well with your family out in Dubai, mate, gives me good pleasure for you.
I appreciate that. Thank you, mate. Yeah, it was. I'll tell you what, I've got some great memories of it, though. You might have led me astray a little bit, but it certainly gave me some good memories. I want to start before that. I want to go back to, when you first started playing football and how you came through to kind of tell your story to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, football's been my life, since I was a kid, obviously, growing up in a council estate in Tulse Hill. I wasn't, I was my dad was one of 11, but no one had ever played football before in the family. So I was the first to sort of break the mould, if you like. I started my YTS at Crystal Palace. I broke through the youth team with Gareth Southgate, who's the England captain, into the 23s, and we both made our debuts at the same time for Crystal Palace in the Premier League. And then I had a swap deal with Chris Armstrong, and I went to Millwall as a sort of 20-year-old striker, and my career started from there. Really, I had 2 fantastic years there under Mick McCarthy, and then I went on to Watford, Crewe, Royal Antwerp, Brighton, Colchester, and then I ended up having 3-4 really good years till I was 35. We were at Barrytown up in Wales, with good friends of mine, Peter Nicholas and Kenny Brown. So that sort of spanned over 17 years of a very up and down career with a couple of highs, but many, many lows. But I guess that it shaped me and made me into the man I am today.
Brilliant. I know you scored quite a few goals at Millwall, didn't you? Because I remember watching a few of them videos in the players' room at Crewe. But how did you then get into what you've been so successful doing now? How did that come around?
Well, I think really, getting back to the footballing era, I was doing everything was going really well until I got to Watford. I went there for $500,000 in 94, and things were going fantastically well, but I was now 22 years old, and I started to enjoy the finer things in life a little bit. I wasn't groomed. I didn't come with any sort of money. I didn't know how to deal with the kind of adulation at the time, and probably whatever pitfalls you could fall down as a young professional back in the day when there was no phones or no real monetization of individuals. I probably fell down every one of them, really, and I played with some fantastic managers, bought me or tried to rekindle that flame, just to name a few, but people like Steve Coppell, Mick McCarthy, Glenn Roeder, Graham Taylor, Dario Gradi, Mickey Adams, Brian Hall and Mick Wadsworth, fantastic coaches and managers there, but they just couldn't kind of stoke the fire up again and get me back to the form that I once had as a younger lad. But I'd have done a lot of damage to myself in terms of, like I say, I was going out too much, I was drinking too much. And when I got to the bigger stage and the bigger moves come, and that's when I really should have applied the hard work, the desire, the application and the ruthlessness within my football. When I never, and then once the natural talent sort of gave up on me, I never had the work ethic that ran alongside it. And very quickly I was facing becoming a free transfer and moving up the north, and everything started to fall apart a little bit. So going back from that, I learned that hard work, application, ruthlessness was 70-80% of any person that needs to succeed in life. So when I come to the end of my career at 35, obviously there was a lot of pondering, and in that era, most players were opening up sports shops or pubs or becoming a black taxi driver, whatever. I just thought I need to stay in football in some capacity. And I chose the route of an agency, agent or representative at the time. I didn't want to be a coach or a manager because I just thought people had too much ammunition on me because of the way I conducted myself, and I needed to, change people's mindset on me, and I needed time for them to see that the hard work and I was a changed character, if you like. And I just didn't want to tell a 15, 16-year-old, 18-year-old kid you're not getting a contract, because when they could turn around and say, well, I'm not being funny, you done this and you done that. But I knew that through an agency or being an agent, my story I could tell to others, I could tell to families, I could tell to the players. And they would gravitate towards me, because I knew that if they ever got to the edge of those pitfalls that I fell down, hopefully I could intervene and stop them, and I could I could manage them in a way where I could make them become a success where I failed. So that's sort of like the early stages of my thought process into wanting to become an agent.
So when you first become that, did you start out on your own? How did you end up building New Era?
Yeah, well, I formed New Era. Obviously, it was a new era for me, coming from a footballer to more wanting to become a businessman. So in the early days, it was myself that founded it, and then people knew that I might be, was he still that little bit of a maverick, that still bit of a fuck about merchant to a degree, sorry for swearing. So I needed somebody from a union that could come and work alongside me and show a bit of professionalism. So one of my old teammates, Peter Smith, that was with me at Brighton, he had been 5 years in retirement at the PFA. He had an agency license. So I said, Pete, would you lead the PFA, come and work alongside me? I formed New Era Global Sports. I want to have a right go. I think that we've got, stories to tell. We can manage people. The norm was that, an agent would sign a contract. Then before the ink was dry, they'd be up the M1 and you'd be left to your own devices. And that was something that I was struggled with, because when I was getting a few quid, I didn't know how to spend it, and I was spending it on all the wrong things. I wasn't investing it. I wasn't thinking about the future. I was buying cars and watches and going out too much. So I wanted to create a 360-degree agency with a holistic approach that would look at all aspects of an agency. So that was looking after the talent, but it had a human touch. And I think, like I say, fast forward to now, 12 years later, I probably feel that, I'm at a point now where we've achieved that and we could probably compete with anybody in the marketplace.
Brilliant. And when, what separates you from the competition, basically? I mean, like the differentiators it seems to me that there's a hell of a lot, and I don't know much about the industry at all, but there seems to be a lot of agents out there. So what do you do that obviously attracts the likes of the players that you have and get the reputation that you've got?
Yeah, I mean, it was always going to be a tall ask from the beginning, because it was such a saturated market, and a lot of the existing agencies that were out there from the get-go were still very much leading the marketplace, and it was difficult to break into that and show that change. So the only way I could show that change was to try and create something new. And like most agents were just creating a player service where they'll just look after you as a human being and look after just your contracts. Like I said, I wanted to create a 360-degree approach, which would look at the players, just helping them develop into better humans, looking at their social media and their media side, which is so important, because as I was starting to develop, social media had come into its own. So how to deal with that, how to deal with it, explaining to them that stuff that you're doing today you can fall foul of in the future. Seeing if there was a commercial arm, that when the guys were at a level where they had a commercial reach, they could use that to help them in their transition for life after football. Connecting with their families, wives, girlfriends, and just bringing a real family vibe to what was going on in the agency world that wasn't there for me, and I didn't think was out there. And now, like I say, so I think that's pure, having that human touch, the real togetherness. A lot of my clients are signed by my former or existing players, so I don't go around hanging around players, coaches, team coaches with a business card saying give me a call on stepping on anybody's toes. It's quite organically been built by our first generation of players recommending and recommendation, and like slowly but surely we've just bolted on different aspects of what a player now needs, in order to have a support vehicle around him and a structure around him that enables him just to go on over those white lines and that pitch and just succeed in football, knowing that they've got a trust and safety net around them, that whenever they need it or they fall foul or they're in any trouble, there's people around them that can help them get back on the horse as quick as possible.
Yeah, with in terms of recruitment, speaking on the webinar to see people involved in the game from a player perspective and also from a coach perspective, I suppose it's easy in terms of the very talented players that are obvious to everyone when they're coming through, and everyone wants a bit of them. But how do you go about finding those players that obviously the coaches are looking for, where you're identifying them at a younger age group or a lower level? I know you just mentioned there about your network of players, but how do you get them kind of rough diamonds or whatever?
Yeah, I think that's something that I've always known, like I say, my journey coming from a council estate, not, being groomed, not applying himself and not doing all the fundamentals right as a player. I knew that I had an opportunity second time round, that I need to be, have elements within a businessman now that I've put in place, that I think there are parallels between football and business, big differences, but at the same time, you have to be ruthless. You have to earn the respect of your staff. You have to make sure that if you're going to be one that's going to hold weekly, monthly meetings with your staff, that you give them no ammunition to be able to angle at you or throw at you. So you have to make sure that you're first in, you're last out. You're doing everything that you need. And the art of delegation has been fantastic for me in terms of, you're only as good as your staff around you. So having an eye not just for talent on the pitch, but an eye for staff in recruitment, in order to build your business is key. But going back to like the recruitment side, I just look at players. I watch 5-6 games a week, and I've been lucky to handle the likes of Rio and Anton, their careers over the last 10 and 12 years. But that was easy because they were fantastic footballers. So you just pressed a button and whatever you wanted got activated. But for me, my major successes have been the lads that maybe others didn't look at. Maybe people like Neil Taylor, that when I took him on, he was at Wrexham. On very small money, and went on and he's in the Premier League now with Aston Villa. Had a fantastic career at Swansea. Played in the Olympics for Great Britain, and played in the semi-finals of the European Cup for Wales. Ashley Williams, Stockport, and went on and become a leader of men. Gareth McCleary played for Bromley Town, represented Reading in the Premier League, and played for Jamaica. And Chris Gunter, that went on and had 90 odd caps and is the most capped Welsh player in the history. Lads that have done it the hard way, that have gone on and had fantastic careers. Just to know that you've played a small part in their development, it gives you the joy, and it makes you keep coming back. For more, when people say, you get addicted to golf, or it's such a horrible game, but then you just hit one shot and it just lands 10 foot from the pin, and it makes you want to come back tomorrow. Them sort of successes makes me delve into that sort of 17, 18, 16-year-old bracket. And I don't look at lads that are in the academy and looking at a full stall. I like lads that have done it the hard way, that are doing their jobs, that have got respect of their fellow pros, that have been rejected, Tommy Smith that's been rejected at Man City and has to go to Huddersfield and then comes back and then captains Huddersfield in the Premier League. They're the stories that I want, lads that have had rejection, felt the pain. Ben Godfrey, conference at York, done it the hard way, rejected by Middlesbrough, captain England under-21s, Norwich now, going to be on the brink of a fantastic move, and I think going to be one of England's best centre-backs over the next 5 years. They've all done it the hard way. None of them have come from the Liverpool or Tottenham academies looking the part at 16, 17. I don't class you as a pro until you've made 50 first team games, and that's when I'll start to get into the heads of the players of what they need and how they need to what they need to top up to become and take themselves to the next level, setting themselves goals. So I believe everybody has a pathway. Some have it easier than others, but if you apply yourself, if you show the application, desire, work ethic, everything that I didn't show, but I can tell them that that's why I become a free transfer. So there's that story. If you go, once you get to a ceiling that you think you've done enough, you can take your game again to that next level. Your pathway will be found, and it's been proven that you can be like Rio, that can stay at a Premier League academy and stay there all of his life, or you can do it like an Ashley Williams or a Neil Taylor that at 17, 18, 19, 20 were rejected, but have all had fantastic careers for club and country.
Yeah, and do you go out, like yourself, how many games a week will you go out and when you're kind of speaking to people with the network that you have to try to identify these, is it so you're, and if you go to, there's a number of coaches on here and who I know of, and they might be looking at a four-corner model approach, but like the psychological side, the social side. So you're looking at these types of players who through someone that has that bit, that's been a bit unlucky, or through a manager or something. Is that how you go about it?
Yeah, I think age is key. I mean, for me, I'd rather have a lad that is playing for my local team, Bromley, in the National League at 18, 19, playing week in, week out in men's football at 19. Okay, people might not look at him at 19 and think, oh, he might feel embarrassed to put on a Bromley tracksuit because all of his mates are playing for the under-23s at Tottenham. But I'd rather have a boy in the National League at 19 playing men's football, playing week in, week out, learning what it takes to play for 3 points on a Saturday, playing against lads that are having to play for their mortgage, opposed to being 20, 21, still playing in the academy football and the under-23s at Tottenham, because then when they get released at 22, they then have to go to a Southend or an Accrington Stanley, and they've been so muddy-coddled, they've had their kits cleaned for them, they get unbelievable canteens where the food's made for them, and they've been so sort of like protected. When they go down to real life football with lads that are playing for their livings, they just can't react to it at time, and you find out that they then just fly through the levels, and they end up, if not playing, or they end up playing very low level football. So I like it where the lads are getting good, hard, stern, old school groundings from the age of 17, 18, 19, 20, so that when they do get their moves to a higher, it's appreciated, they've earned the respect, they've got the respect, and I think that they can then go and develop and become better personal in terms of their own education and the education of football. So for me, I think that too many lads spend too much time playing under 23s football. I don't think, for me, it works.
Right, fair enough. And with that, I mean, you go from taking the pride out of someone who had knockbacks, worked really hard, and got improved. But then you manage Rio Ferdinand, who's been your friend for a long, long time. How do you manage him in terms of one of the biggest names in England, if not the world, where you've got offers here, there, and everywhere? How do you deal with that?
Well, I think Rio's always been one that in his transition, he wanted to be sort of true to himself. He was going to be attached with brands that he had a belief in. So whether that was going back in working with lads in education of football. Our next generation does a lot of stuff at Dulwich Hamlet, whether or not, he's aligned to brands now with Aston Martin, or he's doing his own clothing brands. It was something, and getting people involved in something that they believe in. So you're not just taking an endorsement for the sake of taking the money, that you have to have a passion and you have to have a belief, because people will see through you. So I think that in the early days, that was key for him, attaching him with stuff within the community, whether it be going back to Peckham or parts of Manchester where he grew up from. And, so he had the love of the people, but at the same time, he had the respect for people globally from the hierarchies of football. And he's become a person now that can go and have a game on an estate with his mates, or he can have a cup of tea out of a China mug with Prince Charles, because he's done it stage by stage, and he's never forgot where he's come from. And obviously he's won everything in the game. So for me, it's been quite fine. It's been quite an easy job, just making sure that, you just navigate his transition and still making sure that he still comes out of it, being real and the person that he is. So for me, he's always done things as a team, but and like I say, getting back to the art of delegation within my company at New Era, got some fantastic young entrepreneurial, commercial, valuable people. I'm a 50-year-old man now, so I engage with younger people. People that work for me are a lot younger than me in most cases, because they see the world differently. So it keeps evolving, and the world keeps changing. So I'll see things as someone that was born in the 70s and a 50-year-old man coming up, whereas lads that are working for me that are in their 20s and 30s see things differently. So we hold our meetings, and I share how, what they see, and collectively we'll move forward with our commercial clients, whether that will be Robbie Savage, or Rio Ferdinand, Mick McCarthy, Farrell Williams, whoever is in that sort of transition period of their life. You can't get stuck in ways. The world moves, and you need people around you that are moving with it.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, actually, in terms of recruitment of staff. Like, what do you look for? I know there's a few people on here who actually are looking to get into the game, and what do you look for in your staff? Jamie?
Granny?
Sorry, Jamie, I lost you there. I was just saying, that was going to be my next question in terms of recruitment of staff. Like, what do you look for in your staff?
Well, I like a mix. I've got myself and Pete, that are the CEO and managing director. I've got Richard Dunn, who's a very experienced financial controller. Steve Lou does all of my, taxation and payrolls. He's been with me now for 25 years. Christine has been with me for 12, 15 years. So I've got some real loyal backbone staff that have been with me. So loyalty is a big thing for me. And then obviously some young, dynamic, commercially driven, social, but people that see the world through the social side of life now, that can basically infuse and educate me on a daily basis. I think the beauty of me now and the person that I've become today is, when I hit that ceiling before where I took my eye off the ball, because I've had a second coming, I've gone completely the other way now. So, my work ethic is second to none, and I want to learn every day. I want to learn off these younger guys, and I want to be a sponge. Even now, I've taken my business to a real ceiling, and some people say it's at excellence, and it's at a point where it probably couldn't grow anymore. I've added 2 more experienced components and staff to the business this week, because I think that there's still more growth, because I want to continue to put layer on layer on layer, and I don't want to rest on my laurels like I did 20 years ago, 15 years ago, because very quickly I went from being a player that had a real chance to a free transfer at the blink of an eye. So I'll look for loyalty. I want hard work. I want people that share information. I don't want any mavericks. I don't want people that you can't manage. I don't mind having difficult people and ruthless people, but people that want to share, because and people that want to work in a team environment, because that's something that I've created from the offset. So I don't want to get to a point now where I'm bringing mavericks in that are just using New Era as a structure to come and use what the hard work that's created the last 12 years to maybe go off on a tangent and go and do their own thing. So it's very difficult, and we must get 20, 30 applicants a week in order to want to come into what we're creating at New Era. But I've got to say, it does worry me. I am very, very scared to appoint new people, because it's something that I'm being the founder. It's my baby, if you like, and I just know that having one or two wrong appointments can tip the dynamics, and it's just something that my existing client list, they're with us because they like the fundamentals and what New Era stands for, and I just got to be careful that I don't bring clients or staffing that's going to disrupt or change the values for what has made us successful.
Yeah, brilliant. Do you see, I mean, you mentioned to me the other day about, when players have finished training, they've obviously got so much time on their hands, and, where they can go wrong, basically, particularly when they're younger and they've got a few quid. Do you see yourself as a mentor, and do you see that as something that your staff that you recruit, so they're obviously speaking to players when they finish training, just finding out what they're doing and trying to keep them on the straight and narrow as such? I mean, how do you, and also within that, if you're bringing in younger members of staff, how do they kind of communicate with players who might be just a few years younger than them and advise them?
Yeah, no. I mean, the younger ones and the younger staff that we bring in, they're more sort of like working. They could be working in the media department. They could be working in the commercial department. They could be there that are helping the lads, with social media and even things like we're doing today. We did Zoom meetings and things like that, so it's ever evolving, and we need these platforms, and we just need people that get it, that just tell the hierarchy, and then we can then explain, what's going on to the players. But for me, I think I earn the respect of the lads and of the players, and I invest a lot of personal time and money. And we all earn good money. Let's make it right. No one's here, and no one's saying that agents get a lot of bad publicity. But for me, if you do it the right way, I look at the industry, and it sometimes baffles me, and even myself, Watford bought me for 500 grand in 1994, was a lot of money. I'd be in the training ground for 2 hours a day. The other 22 hours of a day, I was out doing what I wanted to do, And if that was going drinking, or going betting shops, or I was going out clubbing, or whatever advice or whatever I wanted to do, I was doing it. There was no mobile phones there. No one could really see or gauge what I was doing. But that was their investment over 2 years. Had gone down the drain, because 2 years later I went to Crewe on a free transfer. They had done their 500,000 transfer fee and all of the wages for 2 years that they had given me, and got nothing in return. So if you're a PLC or you're a company, you're putting money into that advocate, that person, and it could very quickly go down. So I thought to myself, I need to create a business and a business model that I want to invest my money and my agency fees back into the individuals, to make sure that I put a support team around them when they leave the training grounds. And it may be seen as a bit busy at times, or, oh no, Jamie's on the phone again, or whatever, but it's for their own benefit. Because I think to myself at the beginning, if you go and spend £25 million on a player, say Michael Keane at Everton, he comes into Finch Farm 2 hours a day, and he goes out for 22 hours a day, and he could be a wrong, and he's not. He's the most fantastic, educated, hard-working kid you could manage. But I'm just saying, there are lads like that, and I'm his agent, and then he has a bad 2 years, and they sell him for 5 million back to Burnley. The club have done 20 million. The players' wages are going to be on the decrease. My agency fees are going to be on the decrease. The flip side of that is, he goes to Everton for 30 million. We look after him. We make sure he's all right. We make sure that he's, everything, all the boxes are ticked. And he goes to AC Milan for 50 million. the players' wages are going to go up, the club would have made a return on their money, the PLC are going to be happy, my agency fees are going to go up, and everybody's happy, and Everton's going to say to me, Jamie, can we have a bit more of that? Who else you got? Because I relate to it that if you invest £30 million in a diamond or a piece of art, you have that in a vault, or you have that locked up or guarded 24 hours a day to protect your investment. But you pay £30 million for a footballer, and 22 hours of the day, you let him go off on his own devices. And that just doesn't resonate to me. Whether or not it's because I knew I would take liberties in those 22 hours. So now I'm back in a capacity where I don't want that to happen to the next generation. Plus, I'm a businessman now, but I just can't see how these lads are able to do that. So I put my own personal support team around it, and that's where my investments then come into fruition, and that's part of my business strategy.
Brilliant. And I mean, with that, is there ever any players that you think that you just won't take because, you know, that you don't trust them? You know, I see everything, you know, what you've spoken about there, but I see it even it comes across on your social media at New Era, you know, this family, like the reputation that you've built. But is there sometimes where there's players that you might think, well, I'm going to earn a few quid out of him, but I'm not going to be interested in him? Or is it, listen, at the end of the day, it's business is business. We're going to make money out of him. How do you?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I'll take anybody because I want to give people a second and third chance. You know what I mean? The same way that, you know, Dario Gradi or Mickey Adams or Brian Horton done for me. They tried to recapture somebody that they thought, you know what, if we can just get him back to what he was, he could get us out of Division 1 or whatnot. So you've always got to give people an opportunity. So listen, I'd always give people an opportunity. I feel that if they let you down, or, you know, or you continue to make those same mistakes, then there's going to become a cut-off period where you say, listen, you know, we're just not right for each other, and you got to go on to pastures new collectively. But I think everybody deserves a new chance. Everybody needs a second chance. Everybody needs the opportunity to change the perception, because I think I'm living proof of that. That, you know, people's got so many stories of me as a player, and they were probably quite, you know, I never done a harm by anybody, but there was always, you know, fond memories, but they were always ones of being a Jack the Lad or, you know, being a bit of a fuck about merchant, really. Everything other than really football, you know. I scored a few goals at Millwall, but other than that, I'm just known as a real nice guy that got on with everybody, that, you know, was out and about, and a funny old chappy Cockney guy, but, you know, that's not going to feed my family, and that's not going to make me a success in business. So I was given that time in order to be able to change my perception. So I believe, you know, I'd never turn my back on anybody, but I believe that if you continue not to own it, and you continue to blame everybody else but yourself, then you can't move on to greater things in life. I think that the key to me was, you know, if I went in a pub now and someone said, oh, you was the Millwall player that, you know, scored the goal at West Ham, but 2 years later you was shit, I'd say, yeah, because it was me. It was down to me, because I didn't train properly. I turned up last. I was out the training ground first. I don't say, oh, the manager didn't pick me or the manager didn't like me. Too many people blame everybody else. I think the minute that you own it, you accept it. It was my fault. I need to change it. I need to change my life around. People will accept that you've took a responsibility and give you an opportunity going forward. And what, you know, I'm living proof that, you know, you can have football, you can retire at 35, and if you apply the same amount of ethics and more, you can be a success, you know, life after football. Because there's a lot of footballers that when they retire, you know, they get mental health, or they haven't put certain components in place. So when they retire, it's a real struggle for them, because they miss that 3 o'clock buzz. So they look at other vices, you know, whether that's drugs or women or drink, to try and replace that 3 o'clock buzz. When that bell goes, there's nothing like it. Or when you hit the back of the net, there's nothing like it. So I always say now to my boys, when you get to 30, we're going to put components in place that are going to be able to prepare you for life after football. So when you retire at 33, 35, or you can be like Mr. Sheringham and be 38, 39, you can throw yourself into life and career number 2. Because if you dwell on it and you think about what you could have had, what you should have done, all the times that you were, you didn't apply yourself and you drive yourself mad, you can very quickly, start having mental health issues.
Yeah, brilliant. And like going from there with New Era, what you've the model that you've obviously developed, and the media side of it is excellent, isn't it? And I mean the commercial opportunities. How have you developed that, the media and the commercial side?
Well, I think obviously Rio, I've got to say, Rio's been as easy as he was to manage when he was a footballer, because I don't think you need to be a special agent to manage him, because whatever he wanted, he got, because he was winning everything in the game. So I don't take credit for that. But his life after football, the last 10 years, has probably turned into the most popular, commercial, viable footballer, ex-footballer other than David Beckham in the game. And being somebody who was seen as a sort of unpopular number 5 centre-back that don't go and get the goals or put the beautiful crosses or free kicks in, it's been a fantastic journey for me and him and the team collectively in order to get into that point. But because he brought the Beats deals or the EA Sports deals or the Nike deals or the Aston Martin deals initially, he was probably he set the record, and he was the kind of guinea pig, if you like, so that, the work that he put in over the last 10 years and the way that he applied himself has kept those relationships within those companies in New Era that are just there set in stone for the next generation. So when a Mason Holgate or a Ben Godfrey or the next generation boys come through, the relationships that we had with Nike because of Rio's full foul with Mason, or Ben Godfrey and with EA Sports, or Ashley Williams with Beats. So, and the next generations coming through, they will just seamlessly be there, and those relationships will be there. One, because like I say, Rio gave us that opportunity, but because the way the company has applied themselves, there's been no misdemeanors along the way, and we generally do things the right way. All of those commercial companies are there, and the next generation as and when the time's right, and that's always key. We don't try to press the button on lads that are 20, 21, 22. You'll see none of our boys, doing their own fashion labels. None of those lads are my boys are encouraged to do their own this or their own that. Football's what's given you the opportunity. Be a footballer, develop as a footballer. At the age of 29 or 30, when you're Rio and you've won leagues, or you know yourself and you've got one eye on you and your retirement, then you can open a restaurant up. Then you can go and do all these other mad things you want to do, because for sure, football is a business, and clubs won't hold your hand into your retirement at 35. When they say it's time to go, they will get rid of you as quick as you've come in the door. So they have that ruthless mentality as well, like no other business. So boys do need to look at their retirement strategies. But for me, around the age of 28, 29, 30 is the time to do it. I don't encourage people to do it any time before that.
Brilliant. It's great to hear that. I know there'll be so many people out there who would love to hear that as well. And I think there's, you do see that so many issues in the game where, players are off doing other things, and particularly football supporters, it annoys them a great deal, doesn't it? Particularly when the time is not right. Do you work in other sports, or is it just football that you do with New Era? I've never asked you this.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, you get the odd one thrown in, and I just believe that football is what my team know, as in specialise in. Now, we've had approaches and people come and say, can we bolt on a golf department? Can we bolt on a rugby department, cricket department? We may evolve and go down that road. I just believe that, again, it's having the right structure, the right personnel that knows that game inside out. So for me, first and foremost, football is my bread and butter. It's all I've ever known. So I wanted to make sure that we was correct, and we was made sure that we had a presence in that footballing marketplace before we started to worry about other sports where we could maybe make the staff a little bit thinner, pretended we knew everything about each and individual sport, which you don't, which comes back to the art of delegation. So maybe it's something in the future we'll evolve to go and do. I've got no no disagreements about doing it. I just would have to make sure that the personnel and the staffing that we bolt onto those additions know their stuff, so that the things that they do don't disrupt the whole ethos of what New Era Global Sports stands for. So you're always mindful of that. Every time you, like I said, go back to before, every time you're creating a staffing appointment, they just have to understand and buy into what's made us a success. Because the minute you get too greedy or you go off on a tangent, then things can fall foul and go. And once you get a bad name in the game, then trust me, this is an industry where you kick one and we all limp. And your name, as good as it can be today, will be chip paper tomorrow, and you're banging trouble.
Yeah. I think Kenny Brown's just put great listening, been called away, but really, really interesting 40 minutes. So much sense spoken. Oh, good friend of yours. And then I suppose like that would be the next one as well is, you're present obviously in the UK and you're doing stuff in Ireland now. Is that right? I saw Lee Mudd working over in Ireland as well.
Yeah, well, Lee Mudd is one of my intermediaries, and he's from Northern Ireland. Yeah. He's got such a passion for the whole of Ireland. Right. Doesn't want to alienate anybody. And there's such a hotbed of talent over the years that's come out of Ireland. Yeah. That, what he was saying to me when we interviewed him and when we brought him on was the biggest problem for the lads is they come over from Ireland, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, and it's a bit of a slower community. And then they come over to London, Newcastle, Manchester, the great lights and the fast pace. And they and it just throws them, and that year that they're there, they get a little bit disillusioned if things ain't going their way. And then very quickly they end up back going to Ireland. And then end up playing for Lingfield or Shamrock Rovers or whatever the case may be, Bohemians and whatever, Derry. So he said, listen, the talent's here. If I could be based over here and I could create the talent, nurture the talent, and then you guys that are set in the UK have the dynamics and the player liaisons and the setup where as they come, we would help them. We would help them with their settling in period. We would be there to pick up any pieces and treat them as if, like we treat our our English-based players. It's the perfect 360 degrees position for these guys. So we said no problem. So we brought him on as an intermediary. We started to see young people like Jordan Thompson coming through and making his debut for Northern Ireland. Liam Donnelly, the same again, full Northern Ireland international. Mick McCarthy, who was my manager once at Millwall in 1993. We represent him and he got the Republic of Ireland job. So we had such an affinity with Ireland, all of Ireland, that we then built offices in Ireland, in Belfast. But we work across border. And we've got so much young talent coming through now that are applying their trade in all of the leagues in England. And we're going to have many, many success stories coming out of that partnership, I'm sure.
Brilliant. I'll just put in the structure in place for the UAE, mate.
Yeah, and again, it's all about timing, mate. You know what I mean? Until we knew that we was in a position where we could go and we could put parallels in with what we've done in England, and if you haven't got that right, I think it's unjust to go into any parts of Europe. Once you know that you've got respect and you've got the foundations right in what you know, then it's easier then to start looking into other areas and creating overseas divisions, in which we have done only in the last few months. That we've now got an overseas presence solely that works via through New Era. So our lads now that potentially at the back end of their career want to, or as Jadon Sancho has done now, go out there maybe in the early parts of their career. We've got somebody in-house that can accommodate that. The same way, if lads want to get a transfer from the Turkish league or different European leagues, they're able to come to the Premier League, and we could have somebody that's servicing that and brokering those deals. So it's probably took me 10 years before I felt comfortable enough in the name brand to be able to bolt that on. So it's not been no short-term fix.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great to hear that, to be fair, and particularly those people obviously who are listening in and watching in just to understand how you've actually built it. I'm going to go to a question because we've got a load of questions here from people, which will take us a while to, as we've got the last 15 minutes. The first one is from Paul Liffin. Paul Liffin is based in Milton Keynes. I know he's a friend of mine. He's put, what would you recommend to anyone who wants to go into the sports agency business?
I think that you just need to be, transparent. You need to be honest. You need to show your client that he has the belief in you, that, as well as you can get on on a friendship basis with your client, or potentially having clients that could be your friend. But the minute that he knows that you go through those directors or CEOs' doors for the prospective clubs that you're going into battle with, that you're going to go in and you're going to fight for your client to know that you're going to get him the best deal possible without there being any wrongdoings or skullduggery attached. So for me, it's, being truthful to your clients, because it's not always good news. There's going to be days when you're going to give him good news, but there's also going to be days when you're going to have to tell him that his contract's not going to be renewed, or there's going to be tough times and tough days. So always be transparent, be truthful, have a laugh and a joke, and you get down on his levels. But he has to know that when you go into those buildings, that you're going to fight for him.
And on that, thanks, Jamie. And on that, I've always wondered, when you go in and you're discussing with the chief exec or whoever it is in terms of the player's contract, where do you base, depends on the players, but the negotiations, because how do you go in getting the right deal, obviously, for the player without killing everything? How do you go about knowing what he's worth, really?
Yeah, and I think that goes down to planning. I think it goes down to the application, what the player's worth to the football club on and off the pitch, his worth. Is he a young boy that's playing in the first team, that's on, his first contract, and he's playing week in, week out? So, we want some parity. So you need to know, you need to, have an understanding of what other players in the team are earning. You have to look at different types of contracts. You have to look at performance enhanced contracts, which are contracts I personally like, because it gives the lads an uplift in their wages. But by giving them a performance enhanced deals, albeit where, they can get uplifts after every 10, 15, 20 games, every time they hit a perspective, they get an uplift on their wages, which gives them goals and keeps them hungry, opposed to give it to them all at one time. So all different contracts are done all different ways. So you have to have an understanding. You have to go in there with ammunition. You have to go in there with parallels. You have to, be ready that whatever the CEO comes back, you have answers for, and you need stats. You need stats, and you need ammunition, to be able to say, well, hold on a minute, you've just said that, but my paperwork suggests that we've achieved that. Therefore, if we want parity, and if you're not going to give, my player the parity that the other guy's getting in the same position as him, that has underachieved this year, and we've surpassed him, then you clearly don't believe in my player. So maybe, it's time that we take him elsewhere, and that's how transfers are done. Or at the same point, if they believe in it and they see sense and they give you that contract, you have to respect of, the early beginnings that that club of giving you those platforms to be able to go and produce and develop. So when you do eventually leave, you want to be leaving that football club without breaking any relationships, which is also key, because, a lot of people, they break relationships because I want to leave now, but they also have to understand the players that particular club give you that platform to be able to show your talents. So now it's time for you to go and earn more money. Yes, we understand that, but let's do it in the right and the correct manner, because, Monday, you might want to come back to this football club, or you might have to work with that manager again. And if you don't do things right, and he becomes your manager again, you've got to have a short memory. You may never, he may get rid of you the same way that you want to leave. So you just have to do things right, lead by the rules, But at the same time, so long as you're fighting for your clients and they can see that, then most clients are happy.
Brilliant, brilliant, mate. Richard Walker, who is the lead professional phase coach at Stoke City, he's put, firstly, send Jamie my best. Not sure I remember me, but I always had time for it. Always had time for the way he was with us young lads when that was the crew days with Big Rich Walker. He said, from what age does Jamie believe it's appropriate for players to get agents?
I just seriously believe, like, my approach is like, you can have them at 16. And I generally say to the families, the dads that are asking me questions at 16, generally, look, you just carry on and do his first pro, do the first pro move or whatever at 15, at 16, 17, at 18 then, between 16 and 18, you can have an agent. I don't think it's where you're going to get an agent, or I certainly don't make a song and dance about having an agent, where the agent's going to go steaming into places for a 17-year-old, 16-year-old boy. I think it's purely understanding that the family knows best at 16, 17. They've developed, they've done the hard miles, they've took their kids around the country, they know their children and their boys better than most. But just adding on an agency that can just ask the relevant questions throughout the course of a season, if any questions need to be had, to work alongside the family, just to bounce off each other, and again, more importantly, just for the kid to hear another voice. Sometimes if you're working with your families or your brothers or your dads, as a son or as a football player, you're going to tell them really 9 times out of 10 pretty much what they want to hear because of the bloodlines. To then maybe say, well, look, let me just give Jamie a ring. How does he see it? Where there's not that human attachment in terms of bloodline. I might see it from a completely different perspective, and I might want to give constructive criticism. So I think that's where the importance lies, is that sometimes when you keep it just along the family bloodline, and when do you have an agent, or I'll keep him until I'm 20, sometimes it can be too late. It's just, for me, having that bigger surround system of people that all are there for the boys' interests at heart, that might see things slightly differently. And if there's a question that the dad or the mum can't answer because they're scared to go and knock on the door of a CEO or a sporting director, that somebody that just does that on a regular basis can answer those questions quicker, and then everybody can move on and we can then start to achieve the goals. So for me, 16, you can sign them, but any time after that, really. And like I say, not to be going banging down the door, standing on the sidelines, going, "Cool, that's my agent," and driving them off in fancy cars. It's just to let the family know that they've got that support vehicle around them, gives them a bit more muscle in the marketplace, in my opinion.
Great. Mahit Gol, who has emailed in, and I'm gonna ask this question for him, and I'm also gonna ask a question at the same time. Is he's put hardest part of your journey to get where you've got to, and I'm going to ask what's been the most rewarding part of it.
The most rewarding part for me is because I've already played. So there's a lot of lads that are agents that haven't played, and then they become agents. So they're not going to skip the same feelings as me. But for me, I've played the game, I've scored goals, I've played in the Premier League, albeit for Barry Town, but I played in the Champions League. So I've sampled everything in every division. I've scored a goal in every level. And I can't do that no more. So for me, when I turn up to a stadium, whether that would be Stoke to watch Jordan Thompson or Tommy Smith, or I go to Portsmouth and I'm watching John Marquez and I'm now there as a supporter, and he goes and scores a goal, or Neil Taylor goes and heads one off the line, that's how I get my enjoyment now. That's what turns me on. That's what makes me get back in my car, and I turn on the radio and I've got all the results coming in from all different leagues where I've got over 100 clients, and I've got CJ Hamilton scoring 2 for Mansfield. I've got a kid, Isaac Davis, who plays for Cardiff, that's just got 2 in the 23s. I've got Chris Gunter, that's made his 600th appearance at Reading. That's where I get my pride and I get my enjoyment, is just to play that small part in their development as becoming the best that they can be. But on top of that, they're becoming better, and I'm helping them become better human beings, because I know I'm having to prepare them for their life after football.
Brilliant. And what's been the toughest bit then?
The toughest bit is, things like the same time you turn up at the gates, you get a kid like Johnny Williams that's got a world at his feet. He's playing for Wales. He's probably the most dynamic number 10 as a 19, 20-year-old. And, at the blink of an eyelid, he gets a double fracture of his leg. And you just see the boys feeling then from the adulation of going there with the expectations of him having another fantastic game, and you're now at the hospital, and his family's there, and he's thinking to himself, is my career over? And you have to go through all of those emotions, I'll get back to Rio now, and, it just shows you the adulations and what you go through as a player. I remember being at Alex Ferguson's last game at Old Trafford, and it was after Rio had gone through some personal development and enhancement of his game, where he's now coming to 32, 33. People had wrote him off a little bit, and that particular year, it was Fergie's last year. They went on a run. They won the Premier League. Rio got in the Team of the Year, Premier League Team of the Year, and he actually scored the goal that won them the league, and it was Fergie's last title that he had won. And at the end of the game, I walked up the tunnel, and Rio had the Premier League, and he said, "Hold this." He said, "Parts of the way you've been with me over the last 2 or 3 years has given me the desire, the application, the refocusing to want to not just get a transfer, but to stay, prove the doubters wrong. And this day, you pictured this day for me, that this day would come. So now it's come. I want you to have a picture with this moment." And that was, again, my highlight of my career. And then, 1 or 2 years later down the line, he has some personal tragedies in his life, and we've gone from that moment in the tunnel to rock bottom, but as a team, as his agent, and now through that transition into a period again where he's found happiness again. So yeah, I'm an agent first and foremost. I'll knock the door to get you the best deals, but I'll provide a human touch and that sounding board for people, that when times are tough. And I always say, you sign up to be an agent, and it's great when transfer windows open and you're all having lovely pictures of, and you go on to get that trim, that transfer window trim, so you're looking $1 million on the TV. But when the shit hits the fan, and Anton Ferdinand has to go in with John Terry to court in a racism case, and I'm walking in with Anton, who's a black client of mine. I've signed up to that. I'm not looking at colour or race. I'm looking at Anton. He's my client, and I'm going to represent him. I'm going in with him every day beyond colour. So you're signing up to be an agent for all of those things that come maybe outside of the beautiful game. So, if you're going to be a fireman, be a fireman. But when the bell rings, you've got to go down that pole. And I've proved I've gone down that pole. And off the back of that, I've got quite a lot of clients off the back of, when the shit is the fan, are you going to stand up and be counted?
Yeah, that's it's just powerful that to hear, because you only do think of agents where you think of them doing well and money and whatever, but the hard bits are that never get shown, that does it, dealing with tragedies and dealing with players injured and not getting contracts. That is definitely testament to obviously being successful. Gilmore Salmon, who's runs a football academy over in Al Ain in the UAE, has put, how do you handle influx of players asking you to represent them from across the globe, as players get contact details from websites without telling them straight away? I know I get the same, not even anything to do with being an agent or anything, but you get people contacting you all the time. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think, listen, you can't take everybody. You have to be selective in any walk of life, in any business. I think, listen, you've got to take each individual case on its own merit, and you have to look at the dynamics and the portfolio of which is handed to you, and you have to ask yourself whether you believe that it's an educated punt, whether the kid's got the ability to come to the Premier League or to England and play, because your reputation's on the line. And as I said before, if I've done deals with Hugh Jenkins before at Swansea and brought Neil Taylor in for 150 and Ashley Williams 300, and they both get sold for 15 million, he's going to want to work with me again, because I've got an eye and I've got a respect, and there's a development process that helps the club financially. If I go and get a couple of lads in off a wing because I'm desperate to get a deal done and I'm bringing them in and they're not the real deal and they flop, they're not going to have no more of me. I'm going to pick the phone up to Hugh and say, I've got another lad that wants to come in from overseas. And he's going to say, well, hold on a minute, the last two you brought in have been duds, or ain't been right, or ain't been up to it. So again, it's reputation, and you have to back your ability with what you see, and believe in that player in order to process it, to then put him into one of the clubs that you feel that he's going to be a success. Not every player is going to be a success. Not every player that you feel is going to go the right way is going to go the right way. Some don't train on. Some are fantastic in training. When they go in front of 20,000 people, they shit themselves. You know, it's not always, nothing always goes your way. So I think it's just down to recruitment, believing in what you believe, and just making sure that, you know, if you do bring anybody cross border, they're right for that football club, so you don't burn any bridges.
Yeah, brilliant. Are you all right to stay on for 10 minutes or so, Jamie? Because I've got quite a few questions. I don't think we'll get through them all, but if you're okay with that, mate. Mick Leonard, he's put Mick from Streatham, but Mick he went on and played for Chesterfield, Notts County, and
Brilliant.
Yeah, he's out in India now, running one of the big academies out there. But I know he's doing some work, and he's put, how did your business financially sustain itself when it first started out? It must be difficult to make money without good players on your books. Mick from Streatham.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that's the chicken and egg situation, and that's why a lot of businesses that are in the industry at the minute, your WMGs, American Money, your Stella Sports, or, you know, teams like that are out there who come with big Israeli backing and whatnot. So as an independent ex-footballer starting in the industry, obviously I was fortunate enough, and, you know, when you play, you get given a PFA pension at the age of 35. I invested that into my company from the get-go. Bolted on Pete Smith straight away. Richard Dunn as my best friend and financial consultant. It was three of us, and we, you know, what I used and where I was at a bit of a head start was in that downtime of the last sort of 2 years of my career, in that transition from playing to creating New Era and being able to throw myself into New Era on a full-time basis. I was starting to let people know what I was going to go into. So I had those connections within the footballing industry. I was starting to let people know. I was having those meetings as I was sort of like drawing down and had more time on my hands. So I was already, like I say, putting piecing the puzzle together. And I think that helped me in my transition. I didn't have that retire, low, shit, what am I going to do now? Oh, right, I want to be an agent. And in 2 years down the line, open it up and realise that all of the contacts I had in my phone book over the years that wanted a ticket or wanted to meet me because I was a player, all of a sudden disattached themselves with me because I was now a 35-year-old journeyman. I couldn't offer them anything anymore. And there was a new kid on the block. So like I say, for me, it was important that because I was a bit of a happy-go-lucky type guy, what I was getting back was, Jamie, we love you. We love you. You're just an infectious person, but you got to give us a year to show what you're saying is reality, is truth. You are going to change. You have changed. You have got to become serious. We're going to put our career in your hands. We need to see that change. So go off and do what you're doing and come back in a year. And if you have, and I made a presence and I made my notice and I made some noises. And then that's when the likes of Anton, Rio, Daniel Gabidon and people like that, the older pros, started to come because they believed in me and I was a younger version of what they had. And then once you've got those type of clients, then the rest follow.
Superb. That's probably answered Colin Hand's question as well. So I won't ask that one, Colin, but I think you've got the answers there from Jamie. Mohammed Chowdhury's put, hi Chris and Jamie, great insight, thank you. How old was the youngest client you've taken on? Similarly, would you take on older players who might be coming to the end of their playing career? Because I suppose everyone presumes straight away you want a younger player, don't you? But the older players who are...
Yeah, the older players, you know, like that we can help in their transition. I mean, like I say, Ashley Williams will be another one that's still captain of Wales, still playing fantastic football at 35, 36 years old. But I've had him for 10 years. The relationship I've got with him, that when he goes into his transition, he will come back into the new era family in whatever capacity, whether that's working with players with mental health, whether that's the media side, the commercial side, whether it's an ambassador like Anton and Rio, or whether it's an intermediary like Daniel Gabidon. When you have players that have done so much in the game, it's a crime to just let them go and off on a tangent and just hope that they can find their way. They've got so much, they've got so many lessons, and they've got so many skills to give to the next generation. It's imperative that, you know, they come back in to make my agency better. So if there's an older client and he's got some life in him and he's got a bit of commercial viability, and he wants to help, or wants me to help him in his development in transition and life after football, then of course, not a problem. Like I said before, who am I to say people don't get a second chance?
And last one, what impact do you feel the COVID virus will affect the summer transfer window, from Aaron Ray?
I think that it will have a big impact. You know, what I mean is, like I say, at the moment, first and foremost, everybody's staying at home. Luckily, we have this type of technology where we can still converse. I think the footballing world has been hit hard. See, yesterday, National League, probably Division 2, Division 1, probably going to be null and void. Got the Bundesliga game today being played, which is bad timing on your part. Otherwise, I probably would have had another 5,000 on here listening in. I think the impact's going to be great. I can't see there being much movement in the market at high level transfers. I can't see how just the world, in terms of the economy, the loss of jobs, loss of businesses, the unemployment is going to be at its lowest. How football clubs that have tried to go on furlough and asking lads for deferrals can then all of a sudden, the minute that the transfer window opens up, saying, I want to go and buy him for 100 million, I want to go and buy him for 80 million, when everywhere where loads of other areas of the world are suffering. So I think there will be movement. It'll be lower level movement. I think there will be a lot of maybe interest in the overseas markets, because there could be some rich pickings and some easier pickings, and maybe a little bit more value for money out there. I think there'll be movement in players 15, 20, 25, 30 million. And will move, and that will be maybe a cap in that UEFA might put on Premier League clubs. But as people paying 100 million, 120 million, 80 million, I can't see it happening in the next couple of transfer windows at least. But there will be activity. But I think people are going to wheel and deal very shrewdly.
Marvin Johnson, Luton Town legend, has put...
No, not the centre half. Not the centre half. Is it Big Marv?
Big Marv.
The centre back for Luton? Marvin, nothing but respect, man. Good player. And yeah, we had a couple of beers one night in Lillishall when I used to be the old Jamie.
I can just imagine with all them gymnasts around. It's not a question, it's more an observation. Just wanted to say well done to Jamie. He's spoken honestly and been very transparent. Tell him congratulations on everything he's achieved. It's Marvin. It's nice.
Thank you, Marvin.
Nice, isn't it? And mate, I'd like to say that, you know, see, when you came to Crewe, you looked after me as I was a young lad, and I'm very proud to see how well you've done for yourself, and it's brilliant to see, mate. And I really appreciate you coming on and talking and giving a fantastic insight for people to about what you've done and obviously the industry you're in. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you as well for putting on a platform across the globe that I can be heard from. And just second to that, obviously everybody stay safe, stay alert. And third, and to make it a hat trick, I know that I've mentioned some players along the journey of the last hour that have given me fantastic memories. And if there's any other players out there that I may not have mentioned, just so you know, I love you all the same, respect you all the same, treat you all the same. And that goes for my staff as well. It's been a real collective, hard-working effort from all of the staff, all of the players from day one. Joe Lynch, people like that have been with me, Johnny Williams, 10, 12 years, made it this today possible. So it's a platform also for me to say to them, thank you very much. I might not always say it, staff included, but I appreciate everything that you've done along the way.
Cheers, Jamie. I mean, we'll get the obviously have this interview will go on YouTube, and then the series will go on a podcast. So, as you just mentioned there, across the globe, I mean, we've had 24 different countries joining over the last 10. So it's been great. And Wednesday we've got Teddy Sheringham just to talk about the managers that he's played under, his time in management, to get his feedback on that, his insight. And then next Saturday we've got Robert Hoof, which I think is a really good one given the current situation. Obviously, Germany going back to football. What I'm looking to get from him is his insight into coming to England as a young player at 16, where it's now flipped and really gone the other way, where a lot of the young English players are going to Germany. So that'll be a good one too. Yeah. So, but thanks very much, Jamie. I wish you, I'll speak to you soon anyway, and you take care of yourself and the family.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it, Branny.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.